there's well over 120 years of research on transverse development. So it begins with Dr. Edward Bogue. It's called the Bogue Index. Now, Dr. Edward Bogue was an MD DDS. So he's the guy who did all the research on the primary dentition growth and development early, and his research was in the late 1800s and early 1900s. He's the gentleman that we basically all quote, but nobody in dentistry remembers his name. So you know how we look at a child that has baby teeth. What if a child's baby teeth are together with no space? What do we tell the parents?
100%, they're going to have crowded permanent teeth.
Yep. And do you think the wisdom teeth will come in by themselves and fit?
Yeah.
No. So that's Dr. Bogue's research. You know all the research, you know all the details, you just didn't remember his name.
Okay.
So Dr. Bogue taught us that if you don't have a significant gap between all the baby teeth, you're going to have some pretty good crowding. And the less space there is, the more crowding there will be. And teeth, baby teeth that are tight together everywhere, that's a real severe crowded case. Baby teeth that are crowded is the most severe you could possibly get. And of course, all of that came from his transverse measurement. He was measuring between A and J. So he knew that at 28 millimeters at age 4, that kid will have crowding. So 29 is the bare minimum, but 29 is a very light number for age 4, and it comes with crowding. It comes with mild crowding. So a measurement of 29 is mild crowding, and a measurement of 28 becomes moderate to severe, big troubles. So when you're thinking about a 4-year-old, you would like to see 30 to know, hey, a 30 millimeter between A and J at 4, that child maybe doesn't need my help unless there are other credentials like a deep bite or something like that. But now you take his research and you have to bring that forward into the 60s and 70s, Dr. McNamara. So Dr. James McNamara did the research on growth and development with kids from primary to mixed to permanent to show. So that basically what they were doing was measuring all of the kids that came through the University of Michigan for decades. And as they measured them, they made hundreds of measurements. So whether it was intraoral, extraoral, cephalometric, panoramic, they basically measured every single thing you could possibly imagine on these kids and tracked them over time. So what they tracked over time was this group they had this subset of kids who actually grew up and had all of their teeth go where they belong. So it's a smaller population, of course, because most kids had crowded teeth and bad bites. But the very small group of children that grew up and had all the permanent teeth come in right where they belong, and they didn't need ortho and didn't have ortho, so they have this ideal occlusion. Of all the measurements they made, in the hundreds of measurements, there was only one measurement that was a statistically significant predictor of good growth and development. It was the transverse measurement. And so his research showed that those kids landed between 35 and 39 millimeters between 3 and 14. That's by age 12. So 35 to 39 is the range between T3 and 14 by the age of 12. And those kids had 28 teeth come in where they belong. They had good occlusion. They didn't need ortho. Most of them will not keep their wisdom teeth. So 35 to 39, you don't get to keep your wisdom teeth. If you have 28 teeth, easy, no troubles. No wisdom teeth, though, most of the time. So the last piece of information comes from anthropology research. Pre-industrial, pre-Western cultures that have all 32 teeth go to place uniformly around the world. Prior to 400 years ago, that's pretty much how every human developed. The transverse measurements begin at 45. So for an adult that's fully grown, 45 is a minimum between 3 and 14. And then when you hit 50 millimeters, that's when all of a sudden you have better than 90% of the mouths have 32 teeth erupted in them. So 40 is a very safe number. So what 40 does for you, if you can get a child up to 40 and then get the breathing and the musculature right, and they grow a little more on their own, what you've done is you've guaranteed 28 easy. 28 is no longer an issue. So you don't have to think about getting to 28. But by getting to 40 at a minimum, all of a sudden, now you've tipped the scale. You should actually experience half of the wisdom teeth come in on their own. You should be increasing your percentage of wisdom tooth eruption into function. Now, the moment you feel comfortable with that, we start to challenge you to push a little further. And then you'll go for 42, 44, 45. Because as soon as you start feeling more comfortable with your technique, you'll take those kids a little bit farther. And then one day you'll settle in with a little higher number, because you'll start to see, as these kids are getting older, hey, look at that, their wisdom teeth start coming in, and you start recognizing. So the pathway from 30 at age 4 to 35 at age 8 to 40 at age 12 is basically to get you to the point where you have now guaranteed a 28 tooth oral cavity, but you've just now tipped the scale into a coin toss for wisdom teeth. And if you can start to push even further, and that's usually by developing with breathing and muscle activity to get the rest of it on its own, now you're headed towards greater percentages of wisdom tooth eruption into function with no help. and no discomfort whatsoever. It's incredible. Those kids feel nothing as their wisdom teeth are coming in.